Welcome back to the Pharmacy, Pharmaceutical Soccer, once again here to talk about Nashville SC. A day late this week, maybe due in part to the fact that we had 2 episodes last week. And, I'm a big union guy. We believe in getting paid for our overtime and not having too many extras out there. But it felt special to have a chance to get Dax McCarty on, so we wanted to make sure that we had that conversation for you guys. This week it will be me, Clay Trainham, joined by Valair Shabilla. Stephen Robinson has decided not to join us once again. I'm not really sure why this time. I think he's made up some reasons, but I really think
I think he's on trial with a new
that
team.
might be it. That might be it.
I believe it's Westchester. Is that the one in New York?
I wasn't sure. I
The new
wasn't
team?
sure where you were going with that when you said he was on trial. I was like, oh, okay.
I know he's either in the New York or New
Yeah.
Jersey area. I can tell you this much. So pick a team from there.
Cosmos
Red
aren't
Bulls
coming
too. How about
back.
that? He loves. That's true. The Cosmos are coming back. What league are they going to be playing
know.
in?
I don't
Sorry,
care.
this is
Yeah.
USL League
yeah,
One.
yeah.
Feels like a Cosmos.
Yeah.
Right? That seems right.
Either way,
Who knows?
Steven's not with us. And we want you to make up a reason that Steven's not here. And you can make up that reason by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple, and we will force him to read it if he ever comes back. We are also still taking applications to replace him on the show. And if you would like to leave your application to replace him as a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we will gladly read it on here. Because let's be honest, not the worst idea in the world to go ahead and move on from Steven. Right, Valair?
Sure, buddy.
He's gonna love listening to this here today or so.
Yeah, like he listens. That's one of the reasons we're trying to get rid of him.
So we've got a little bit of Nashville news. Obviously, they didn't play over the weekend. The national teams did, but we don't need to talk about that too much. The biggest piece of Nashville news here. Oh, the biggest piece of Nashville news here is, of course, Valair. How was your weekend?
True. I didn't put that on the rundown. Totally malpractice, you'll say, from my end. Similar to Brian Callahan on coaching the Titans. But you know what? We'll just move on.
We only acknowledge one Brian Callahan.
Yeah,
on
I got
show.
to watch the Titans. Yeah, he's. I would say he's coming out of the second best Callahan in head coaching in Nashville so far. No, I got to watch the Titans, watched a good bit of NFL. The NFL is just one of those sports that's just like best enjoyed on the couch. Firmly believe that. So it's lovely. It's a good time. Lost both my fantasy football games, but hey, I won both championships last year, so I'm in no pressure.
The one
to
thing
perform,
people absolutely love hearing on sports radio is folks talk about their fantasy football teams. That's the big draw.
Yeah, that's true. Especially when you're doing a soccer show. Yeah, I agree.
It was pretty good. I mostly worked volleyball matches. It's that time of year where I'm working lots of volleyball matches. Also went to the Warren County Fair, and I was just at Bridgestone we're recording this on Tuesday, just at Bridgestone on Monday night. Went to go see Eric Clapton and the Wallflowers, and that was also a pretty good time. Also very funny. The Wallflowers it predates Valair's time in America, but they had one really big song, one not so big song, and then nobody really remembers the other stuff from my era. And it's very funny watching this crowd of like people who are 100, 200 years old for Eric Clapton sit there through the set, and then the one song they all recognize comes on, and they were, oh yeah, let's go. It was sort of like that Judah and the Lion concert they did for the branding thing.
There was like three songs I knew, because two of them were in FIFA and one of them were Nashville SC.
So
that shows you how much I know about the band.
Moving on to the soccer talk here. The first and most important bit of news to talk about on Nashville SC is that Andy Nahar is sticking around.
Yeah, so that's yet to be confirmed, but Tom Burger had the scoop to start with, and then Ben Wright confirmed it as well. So not that Tom needs any confirming, but it's good to know that a couple reputable sources are saying it. And I would say this is as good as done, even though maybe it hasn't been announced. It is a 1 year guaranteed, plus 1 year option on different terms than Andy Nahar's currently on. So the club did have an option year for this upcoming season. However, with the way he performed, I think we all on this show and everybody who looked at those salary guides said he's way outperforming his salary. And yes, Nashville could have triggered that option and kept him at that salary, but you would have a very unhappy player, and there's no reason for you to do that. So I think I don't know what the new numbers are, but they're probably much better. I'll tell you that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's near double, if not more, of what he is currently making, um, which would put him in that 400, 500 category. Which honestly, if he performs as well as he did this season, still
Yeah,
a
I
bargain
mean
in my book.
he's been the best fullback in the league. I don't think that's even hyperbole. I think that most prognosticators would probably agree with that. You kind of had a feeling it was coming. I know that I've seen his agent retweet lots of people around Nashville the last few months, so it felt like it was something that may have been in the works for a little bit. But it's a good sign. I mean, there are some reasons to be a little bit worried about it, and I do think that those should be acknowledged. Andy Nahar's injury record is not very good. It's part of the reason he was available at the price that he was available at. So that is something to keep in mind, which is probably, in addition to his age, which is probably why it's not any sort of long term deal. But there is a reason he was available. And it stands to reason that this I think would rank as his best season in MLS as a player, while being known as a good player for most of his time in MLS. This is also the season that he's been the healthiest, so it would make sense.
Yeah, and the 1+1 option really is favorable for both parties, right? I mean, Nahar, if he has another incredible season next season, he's probably looking for maybe a 2 year deal at that point, right? Or maybe he wants that option triggered. And for Nashville SC, if things go bad for some reason, whether it's injuries or performance or whatever, they're not on the hook for more than one more year of his salary. And I think that's kind of you know, that's a really it's rare that you see a win on both sides. Everybody comes and agrees, and we will be having this discussion next year. That's the only sort of downside to this is that it's not a long term deal, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. And then in terms of the fullback thing, just really quickly, he is almost a shoe in for right back in terms of team of the season. Some people, so now in MLS we have the capability, at least the journalists voting, have the capability of doing different formations. So some formations just won't have a right back. So he might lose some votes there for having three at the back or something like that. And the only right back really in contention with him is Alex Freeman, I would say, out of Orlando, who's having an incredible year with the USMNT and Orlando. But I think in MLS, obviously, I think Nahar takes that position. And then lastly, on the defender of the year, I don't even remember the last time a fullback got defender of the year. I don't think that's going to happen. So I do think those awards are generally for the center back. So I'd be surprised because Kai Wagner had like 3 incredible seasons and never got it. So I'd be surprised if Andy Nahar ends up getting it. But regardless, he will be in those discussions. And that in itself is a testament to his skill and where he is. And also to the business Nashville have been
Yeah,
able to do.
I mean, we have seen fullbacks get pretty close in voting, but not really pull ahead. But either way, it's the biggest. I think of all the signings that Nashville SC has made, the argument could be made that Andy Nahar has been the biggest one in the last year and a half or so, and it's pretty. Provided that he can stay healthy, it's one of the most shrewd signings uh, that Mike Jacobs has made. And honestly, like when you talk about Nashville SC as a whole, like to be considered one of the shrewdest signings that Mike Jacobs has made is a pretty high bit of praise for the way that this team has been constructed over the years. Um, this is sort of a similar story. to what we've seen in the past. But this is another bit of roster news for Nashville SC. Matt Corcoran has been recalled from Rhode Island uh, as of this morning. So the very first thing I thought about, and I'm sure it was the same for you, Valair, was the loan that Jack Mayer had to San Diego, where he was recalled and then immediately was inserted and started playing and playing a lot.
The first thing I thought about was who got injured. To be honest with you,
That's fair.
because I'll, it's different to Mayor. There are less.
Yeah.
There are more players in that position. To where Mayor kind of, I mean, there was competition. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't as big of a competition, I would say, for the midfielders. But yeah, that is a very good question of like, or a drawback to how. I mean, I think Mayer was there maybe 2 months. I want to say Cochran ended up being a month, maybe 5 weeks there. Um, Similar timetable. I think it we've had Jack Mayer here on the show, and I've had him on air with Valair, and he talked about that as a formative time for him to go in and kind of have that experience. The only difference is that Corcoran has had pro experience before Nashville. Now, granted, it was USL. So I
Technically,
don't know if it's going to
technically,
be.
Mayer played for St. Louis
Yeah.
FC.
I don't think did he not play for their PDL
I think he
side,
had 2 appearances
or
before
did he
he
play
played in
for the
college.
actual?
That's what I'm
Okay,
being. I'm
okay.
being
So technically, he
pedantic
did
here.
play. Yeah. But no, I think it's good. I every time I see Matt Corcoran on the pitch, I want more of it, just because I think he's talented, and B, he doesn't look he doesn't look like somebody who doesn't belong there, and I think that's the biggest testament to a young player like him, because he's out with the U20 national team, but he's here playing against full adults, like 30-year-olds and whatnot, and he doesn't look out of step, and I think that's a really good thing
I
for his
think the
age.
thing that it makes me think of is that when we were sitting here talking about him going on loan, a month or however long ago, it felt like it was going to be hard for him to get into the Nashville SC midfield. And I think one of the things that we've learned over the last month is that those positions aren't as solid as maybe we thought a month or so ago, because we've seen Brugman enter the fold. We've seen Tagseth have a few off games. Yazbek, on the other hand, has been pretty good over that whole run, but we've seen a little bit more. It doesn't feel as a steady depth chart there in the midfield as what we saw, 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, and he has an opportunity. He's gonna have an opportunity. If he's on the roster, he's gonna have an opportunity. Even somebody like Brian Acosta, who's played less than Matt Corcoran for Nashville SC this season, still has an opportunity to break in. I mean, they got playoffs coming up. They have Open Cup coming up, and Jasbek is out in Australia, or New Zealand, wherever he's playing. He plays for Australia, but he's out. He's out there. That travel takes a while. That The toll on the travel takes a while. There's another international window coming up in October. Maybe Brian Acosta will be called to that. Who knows? Taxeth form has kind of dipped a little bit. Brugman can't play 90 minutes in and out. There is going to be some minutes for Matthew Coker. Now, are they as many minutes as he would have in Rhode Island? No, definitely not. But would you rather play a few minutes with your parent club, or 90 minutes in and out with Rhode Island? And I think that's one of the main reasons they sent him there in the first place, is to have those minutes. But now it's looking more likely that he will have more with
Yes,
Nashville
and
C.
so we were just talking about international duty. We're not going to spend a ton of time talking about international duty today, but we do want to kind of give a quick update on where everybody is, because it is one of the cool things about watching this club grow is that you see a ton of folks go out, not just on international duty with the senior team, but with the youth teams as well. So we mentioned Matt Corcoran. He was with the
Cochran was
U20s.
with
I
the
was about to
U20s.
say a different age. So he was with the U20s. Chris Applewhite was with the U19s. Andy Nahar, of course, was with the Honduran team. And then Schaffelberg is off with Canada. Yazbek, as mentioned, is with Australia, and Xavier Valdez is, of course, with the Dominican team. Any highlights that you want to draw from all the international call-ups?
Well, we were just talking about Corcoran. He did get to score in a 4-1 win over Morocco. I think that's pretty cool. He scored in that Aston Villa friendly for Nashville SC as well. I mean, I think for a midfielder, anytime you can get on the scoring sheet, regardless of the level, regardless of anything, I think that's a good thing for your confidence. He has really interesting runs into the box for a midfielder, and I do think Nashville SC now partially it's because they play with two strikers or two forwards, however you want to say that. But Nashville, there isn't a single midfielder who runs into the box like Corcoran for Nashville right now. None of them do it. Now, a lot of that could be instruction from BJ, but a lot of it also could be the player profile, right? So I think that's a really cool thing. But we've already talked about Corcoran. The other thing is Chris Applewhite getting his first sort of national team call up. U19. I think it's just a training camp. I don't think they're even playing a game, but it's cool that he's on that radar, man. U19. This is a homegrown player for Nashville SC. This is the academy's pride, right? This is just something that kids in the academy and kids thinking about joining the Nashville SC academy will look at as, oh, this is a pathway. This is something that we can do. He's already had first team minutes. He's already has MLS minutes this season. So just a really good continuation of that story. And the last thing I'll note is Jacob Schaffelberg not even being involved in the game in Romania for Canada. Not sure what that's about. He's been a favorite for Jesse Marsh. Now they do have another game in Wales coming up, and it could very well just be he's resting it for the second game. It's nothing to have any alarms about, but it's just an interesting thing because Jesse Marsh seems to really like him. So, but shout out to Canada, by the way. They beat Romania 3-0 in
I do
Romania.
think
So
it's
that's
also
pretty
worth
cool.
noting that you're going to get a lot of managers playing with players maybe they aren't familiar with, especially a team like Canada who's already in the World Cup. It's a big topic of conversation with the United States men's national team as well. You've got the luxury of basically having a bunch of meaningless games, which on one hand is not helpful because you're not getting important games, but on the other hand is helpful in that you don't have the down. There's not a huge downside to seeing more players. So you kind of got to figure those two things out. The last thing I want to mention about the international break is obviously there is a game tonight in Nashville. And if you want to know any more about that, or you're listening to this after the fact, which you definitely are, and you want to know what we thought going into that, go listen to the Dax McCarty episode from the end of last week. We spoke a pretty good amount about the importance of the game this evening in Nashville.
And I think regardless of whether or not you care about that game, you should listen to the next McCarty episode, to be honest with you. And our episode last week, because the game in Cincinnati, still got a few more days. And I think both of those episodes are still fresh, including this one. So you have 3 episodes of Pharma Soccer
Yeah.
before the Cincinnati match that you
But
can check out.
as for this episode, we're going to take a short little break and we will be back with a mailbag segment. We haven't done one of these in quite a while, so we got a lot of questions that folks have asked us. We're going to try and figure out what the worst possible answer is and give that to you. So we'll be back. You're listening to Pharmaceutical Soccer. And welcome back to Pharmaceutical Soccer. Clay, once again, joined by Valair Shabilla. If you like this show and you want to let us know that you like this show, please leave a review at Apple Podcasts. You can also drop a comment on Spotify. We do read those. And if you really want to support the show, first off, you can go get some merch at pharmasoccer.com. But more importantly, you can go to 615soccer.com. 615 is the leading soccer outlet in this region. And, help us help you know more about Nashville SC. And one of the things that you can do as a member of 615 Soccer is you can join our Discord if you're a paid member. Joining the Discord will let you talk to us and ask questions that we will then answer on this show directly. So that is what we're going to do first. But Valair, anything to add to the promo there?
I have Yeah, all I'll say is that there are 2 tiers One tier is $3 a month, and the other one's $7 a month. For this segment, for the questions, the $7 a month tier always get the priority, and all these questions, matter of fact, are from our capo tier, which is the $7 one. So, even if you sign up for $3, you do get into the Discord and you get to chat, and you do have priority over somebody who didn't sign up. But if you're a capo member, you do get that extra perk for being a capo member, and we so much appreciate everybody who's joined in at any tier, even the free tier folks. We appreciate you joining, but you know, throw in a few bucks that our way. I think it's well worth your money, and you'll be supporting local soccer coverage, which is something that really doesn't exist other than here.
I think
So
it is.
there's
I
that.
think a lot of people will have noticed that there's been an uptick and a lot of interest and a lot of folks caring about soccer this year in Nashville. That's in no part like there's plenty of credit to go around with that. It begins, of course, with the team being successful. That helps everyone out. But we have put together a pretty good team at 615 Soccer, and we're covering this team deeper than it's probably ever been covered uh, in this city. So it's a pretty fun little thing we got going, and we'd love to have your support. And we'd love for you to get involved in the show. Get involved in 615soccer.com. So that being said, promo segment done. We're going to get to the mailbag. So a couple of these we've sort of answered in the first segment, but we're going to go ahead and read them honestly. So the first one comes from Thomas Porter. With Walker and Nahar needing new contracts, is there room to sign them both? How much does it tie up Cap, Gam, Tam to make two major defensive extensions? Are we likely to have to cross our fingers that the front office can find another JP or Nahar elsewhere? That's, of course, Jason Palacios or Nahar elsewhere on bargain contracts. Of course, Nahar is now done, and that's probably not a bargain contract. I mean, maybe a bargain in terms of like what you get for what you're paying, but it's probably a sizable number in cap compared to what it was. So the real question is, where does Walker fit?
With the amount of players off the bill for next season for Nashville SC, there are some options, but there are something like 10 or 11 players who are between contracts expiring and having an option for next year. Sorry, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but with that amount comes a lot of flexibility. So if they can work out a deal with Walker Zimmerman, I think it's very much possible to keep Walker and Nahar. I don't think there's a problem with that. The only thing I think preventing Walker from staying in Nashville would be if somebody else offers him a DP deal. Because I'm I would be shocked if Nashville offered him a DP deal. It's not going to happen. I'm telling you right now. There will be TAM or max TAM level deal for him. I'm pretty sure for Nashville SC. I would assume actually. I wouldn't say I'm pretty sure. I think Nashville SC would offer that deal for him. But I don't see them offering a DP deal for him. I don't see them offering a DP deal for anyone next year other than Hani Mukhtar and Sam Surridge, because they'll probably go the 2-4 model, which will be a fourth U22 spot. And you get to enter $2 more million in GAM with that model. So I think overall that is more of a Nashville SC Mike Jacobs
I
situation.
I do want to hold off on making probable discussions on what the financials of MLS will be a year from now because one, they change all the time, but two, there is
That's
a World
fair.
Cup next year, and I there hasn't been a lot of things to indicate as such, but the league has slowly been loosening some of the stuff around the cash spent on rosters. I have to think that in a World Cup year, there will be some more changes. I don't necessarily know that those changes will be enacted by the time the season starts, to be fair, but I do think we're going to see some changes coming. I think it really boils down to a particular question and something that we've talked about on here quite a bit, which is how much are you going to pay Jack Mayer? Because if he's not going to be one of your starters and he's making close to $1 million a year, then you have to figure out what to do with that contract. And I think that changes sort of your equation a bit if you move on from him I don't know that that's what they're thinking. They may be thinking that they're going to use him instead of Walker. I don't know. We don't know these things, but we know that there are three starting quality center backs that I would grade all three as above average, some significantly so. And I don't envision Nashville spending what they're currently spending to have three center backs at that level. And um, Mike Jacobs is
Uh,
he's a
the
Moneyball
only
guy. I
thing,
just can't see that
let me.
spending allotment working next year.
So the only thing is Jack Mayer is guaranteed
Yeah,
through
but there's the
2027.
buyout.
Meaning, okay.
If they were to either trade or
Uh,
do a buyout like they did with Leal, could they not do that?
yeah, they could
It's
trade him. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you would buy out a player who performs at the
right.
level
I'm
Jack
just
Mayer does,
saying
though.
if it's getting a DP defender back at a non DP price, you may draw the line
Yeah,
there. I mean,
that's fair.
they bought out Leal for a similar amount, and he ended up going to DC. So
Yeah. And this actually goes into the next question from Chris Ben, who says, does Walker stay or go next season? I think we kind of answered that. But I do think I just want to say one more thing on this is that I think Walker is a very, very important piece for Nashville SC. And I think he's a very important piece for BJ Callahan. And while that is usually not that hasn't kept Nashville from letting go of some of the players, especially under BJ Callahan. For example, Anibal Godoy, or like somebody like Brian Anunga, where Callahan used them a lot. They both were gone. I do think there is going to be like it wouldn't make sense for Nashville to not offer him a deal of some sort. So yeah, I don't know if he stays or goes. I think he does stay. Overall, I think he's happy here in Nashville. But we have Steven joining us randomly,
I
and he
think
has
no,
other
no, no.
thoughts. What
Don't
did you say
acknowledge him.
about
I think we're
Walker?
just going to have Joel mute his mic for this whole time. We just keep doing.
That's even better.
Yeah, I was just going to say yes, Valair. I do agree. Sorry, I wanted to join into the hey, let's just randomly crash two of you doing
I don't know
stuff
what
as
you're talking
you've done
about.
it. Both of you have done it to me at an instance. So I figured,
Blair, mute
oh,
Steven's mic.
I do because I was
Okay, answer
there.
the question and leave because you don't sound great.
Oh, I'm so sorry. What was the question?
Is Walker staying or leaving?
Oh, I think he's gone. Like, I don't think, I do think he's not going to be able to be a DP and Nashville's going to be able to keep him. I think it's just one of the things where if he does stay, it's going to be some sort of restructuring of his contract specifically where it's not a DP deal. And that's my thought specifically. If they're able to make it work, great. If not,
Cool.
cool.
All right. Thanks, Steven. Have fun at your trial at Westchester United or wherever you're at.
Bye, Steven. Enjoy the Westchester Knicks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next question for you, for you, Clay. It says, "As BJ, you guys do look different. I'm not gonna lie.
I was played in goal once.
He has way less beard. As BJ gets more players that fit his systems, is the 4-2-2-2 still his preferred formation going forward?" And that's also from Chris. Ben.
I don't think it's really about the formation. I think that he's playing the formation that fits the pieces that he has. And we've talked a lot about formation fluidity when it comes to BJ. He doesn't like to think in terms like that. I think he's looking for players that can do specific things. So I do think that on the basis of how they've played, that's probably what we're going to see next year. But if there's someone available that he thinks can work in a different way, I feel confident that he might switch his formation to suit different pieces being in the fold.
Oh, I was just saying I agree with that, so you can
Okay.
move on to the next question. I was
So we've got. All right, I'm going to make sure I'm not reading something out of thing. We've got MC Allman, which is what I'm going to call him from now on, like he's a rapper. With five.
What about like
McCallman.
McCallman? Like
With
McCallman.
5
I like
season games,
McCallman.
a possible cup run, and playoff run to go, and plenty of roster flexibility going into next season, what, in your opinion, are the top 3 offseason objectives for the front office to work on and getting this team to the next level? We got a lot of questions that are similar to this, and so we will read the other questions, but a lot might be answered right here.
Yeah, I think the first one for me, I'll give you one of the priorities, and then Clay can do another one. I think the main priority for me is to not stop improving now. We've seen this a lot in MLS where you find some success, and in ways we saw it with Nashville SC really. After 2020 and 2021, there was success there, but they didn't build up on that success. A team that comes to mind is Philadelphia. Now, this year they're looking at a different team. You know, it's looking like maybe they'll be able to reach those heights. But Philadelphia always were shy from that last step of getting that last player in or whatever it may be. We've seen it all around the league. You know, even on a smaller scale, like RSL had a couple really good seasons and just did not build on that, and it just kind of went on the wayside. And that goes for both the coaching staff and the coaching sort of union, as well as the players, but mainly on the front office as well. Whether it's John Ingram spending, whether it's Mike Jacobs signing players, and whether it's BJ Callahan coaching those players, you have to keep bringing in fresh players. You have to keep the competition alive. You can't just rest on a 1 or 2 good windows. You have to have 3, 4, 5 good windows in order to create an elite team in MLS or any league, really. So I think the first thing I would say, priority wise, is to not stop here. And honestly, with the players leaving or potentially leaving, again, it gives them really good flexibility to build this team for BJ Callahan, which I think Mike Jacobs has done a great job with so far.
I think the team that they have right now is a good team. I think that competition is a important thing, and I'm not quite sure what is meant by off-season objectives. But for me, if I were looking at this team and had to identify 3 places that to build up, when I say depth, I don't just mean depth pieces. I don't mean a guy who's, a better depth piece than another guy. We need to see guys that come in here and push the starters, like that could be the starters. And the 3 places that you look at, for me, just looking at it, striker. It can't just be Sam Surridge. You need someone else that's up there. We've said that for years, but now that we know that Sam Surridge can do the job, which I think everyone on this show thought he could, but now we know that he can. There needs to be another viable option on there. I don't think that Teal does a bad job, but that's a place that you can improve on. I think you look at fullbacks. There is not a lot of depth there. You've got injury concerns with Nahar, which we talked about earlier. I think you got injury concerns with Lovitz. They're both older players. It's a big drop off once you lose a couple guys at either of those spots. That's another one that I look at, and I'm just like, you got to get somebody in there to really press to not just lift the level of the starters, but maybe surpass the starters. And then last, this is something that we've talked about. We haven't talked about a ton on here because he's been great, but I think you can improve the goalkeeper. And I think that Joe Willis does a great job. I think that he doesn't, in some ways, get the credit he deserves. He's another year older. He also has never really seriously been challenged for that starting role. There's been a moment here or a moment there, and ultimately it always works out the same. And I do think that Nashville is going to be trying to figure out what's their long-term plan at goalkeeper. Obviously, it's a position that BJ also has some history with as well. So I do think that they'll be looking for someone there. They might be looking for someone there that also suits better for building out the way that they would like to build this team out in possession. So those are the 3 spots. I'm not sure if that's totally the question, but to me, that's what I'm looking at and saying those need to be the primary objectives.
No, that adds up. And I will say on 3 guys, 2 of them you mentioned, Joe Willis, Daniel Lovitz, and Alex Muyl. All 3 of those players are out of contract after the end of the season, but all 3 of them have option years, and all the option years in MLS are club option years, so they can trigger and continue the same. And I would be surprised if all 3 of them got their options accepted, right? That doesn't mean they're leaving the club, but I just don't think all three of them will have their options accepted. One or two, maybe. I don't think all three at the level they're
It'll
at with the
depend on
money they're making.
what's out there too. Yeah.
Right. Let's see.
No,
Wait, did you ask the last
asked the
one? Did
last
I
one.
answer the last one? Okay, I got this one. This comes from
Weiser
Wizard.
or
Wizard.
Wizard. Wizard or Wizard. It's more fun to say Wizard. But I think it might be Wizard.
Wizard 21. There we go. This is multiple questions, so I'm just gonna read the whole thing. Is the Open Cup the best chance to overachieve compared to preseason expectations? What odds do you give us at getting through Philly? And when we do, are the odds better or worse in the final?
I like the phrasing.
I like that he asked for odds and then immediately was like, when this happens, regardless of your odds.
I don't know. I think our preseason expectations were to win the Open Cup. I think all of us said that's what. I mean, that's a big thing to put on a team. I think we'll all admit that that's a big thing to put on a team. I think that they have met those expectations with the type of run that they've made in the Open Cup. You're kind of up against it. We had our feelings about the Orlando Cup game, and ultimately it did work out well for Nashville, and they've treated it very seriously ever since. Now, it's a real chance to bring a trophy to the city, and a city that doesn't have very many. I think the Preds got a President's Cup, and I mean the Titans have been to the Super Bowl, so
I think the Titans have an AFC South championship.
Well, they have a few,
that's not
but
yeah, is it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, I'm not counting that. I'm sorry. No,
agree.
You're in a division with the Colts.
The President's Cup is the only real trophy that I think you can say the city has.
Yeah. I do think it will be kind of overachieving a little bit if they did get the first trophy in the history of the club, let alone the Nashville part of it. So I do think it's the best chance of overachieving. However, I do think the bigger accomplishment would be to finish top 4 in the East in the way the East is right now. And not to say that I think the Open Cup is more important, but let me make sure I'm saying the right thing. But in terms of overachieving, finishing 4th in this Eastern Conference, it is unheard of. Well, if you ask people before the season started for Nashville SC, nobody would even give him a chance. Even Nashville SC fans wouldn't have given him a chance in the way the Eastern Conference is set up.
Winning the Open Cup would also mean beating Philly 3 times. I think that's a pretty insane, insane thing. I do.
Who could end up winning the Supporters' Shield?
I do think that. I mean, I'm putting the cart before the horse here a little bit, and I will own that. It's a cup play. Anything can happen in a cup game. Obviously, I just mentioned the Orlando game. As far as I'm concerned, the Eastern Conference or the Eastern semifinal is the final. Those are the 2 best teams left in the Open Cup. And so whoever wins that game, even though they're going on the road, should still favor their chances in the cup final. That's the way I feel about it.
I would say for the Philly match for Nashville, it's pretty much a 50-50 for me. I would give Nashville a 5% advantage. So I'll say 55-45, simply because the home crowd. And we've seen Geodis Park really be showing up for big events. And this is a big event. I hope the club does everything they need to get it as close to a sellout as possible. It's a weekday. It's kind of a short notice. It's not included in the season. I think it's not included in the season.
Or it's an opt-out.
Yeah. Right. Oh, okay. You can opt out. Okay, so that's probably a good thing. But yeah, I think I'll give Nashville a 5% advantage based on that. And then in the final, I think it just depends on whether it's Austin or Minnesota. Honestly, if it's Austin, both of these teams should roll Austin fairly easily, whether it's in Austin or on home soil. But if it's Minnesota, I don't see Nashville getting through to Minnesota. I don't I think the way Minnesota plays will frustrate Nashville a lot. They sit deep, they don't give you anything, and they counterattack and score goals. and they beat you on set pieces and stuff like that. And I think Nashville will find it really hard to break Minnesota, especially in Minnesota. I don't favor Nashville's and chances in Minnesota at all. I do think they are overwhelming favorite if they play Austin, even if it's in Austin.
I back Nashville in big games. Honestly, I think that right now that's what they do well. They've done well with them so far. Knock on wood.
And
Yeah.
that's what it takes to win a cup. I mean, that's what it takes. It's to we're talking about overachieving. Overachieving is going to a team like Minnesota and beating them at home, right?
So this is a similar question from Ben. Never heard of him. Honestly, I don't really care that
I don't know who that is.
Ben's using something that's for subscribers to ask us a question when he can ask us a question whenever he wants because he co-owns a site with Valair. But would winning the Open Cup but finishing outside the top 4 and losing in the first round of the playoffs count as a successful season? I think we both agree that it would be a successful season if they win the Open Cup.
Yeah, I think making the playoffs was the marker I think I had for this team. So making the playoffs and winning the Open Cup will just be like an
I don't
extra...
think there's any way of looking at this season, regardless of what happens in the last 5 games, as being anything other than a successful season. Because even if they...
I would agree with that.
It might be unsuccessful on the basis of what we've seen, but on the basis of, in totality, this is already a successful season. The energy is back in the fan base. The team is good. They made a cup run. I think there's no way of framing this as anything other than a successful season already.
I'll go ahead for the next one is from Grant. And he asks which path is most likely for berth in the Champions League. Presumably Champions Cup is what he means. It's the Open Cup. The Open Cup, it's 2 games away. You win those 2 games, you're in. I think for it to happen on MLS play, you either have to finish at the top of the East or maybe top 3, and just depending on how those slots fill in. Obviously, if you win MLS Cup, you are in, but that is exponentially harder than the Open Cup based on where Nashville are at the moment. So yeah, I would say Open Cup is the easiest one. Clay, I'll ask you this question. You can answer this one. This comes from NSC Spence, in parentheses, David, who I did meet at the last home game, by the way. What weakness/needs have been revealed by this recent skid, and how can they be fixed in time for the playoffs?
Well, I think that the biggest revelation seems like strong, but the biggest that has been revealed is that this team isn't as deep as maybe we thought at different times this season. The midfield had a spot of bother, and it became pretty clear that that's something that needs to be worked on a little bit. That I think can be ready for the playoffs, because I think you just got a couple players that were either hurt or in bad form, and I think that'll be fine. Depth at the fullbacks can't be fixed before the playoffs. It is what it is. But it went from having a pretty good left back into having a backup right back playing left back in pretty much record time, and that just, we talk about it all the time, like the health, how quickly an injury or two can turn a good team into a bad team, or a great team into an okay team in MLS. And it's just because of the way the rosters are constructed. You see them happen very quickly. And I think that we saw that. And I think that there are other things going on in this recent skid that can be worked on. Obviously, there's, finishing and sort of the basic sorts of things that you'll say anytime that a team's in a bad moment. But for me, the biggest thing to point to is that midfield got a little bit shaken up and hasn't totally figured it out yet. And the injuries really came at a really bad time in a really bad spot.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think at this point, you're kind of rolling with what you have as well, kind of like Clay said. Now, I do think there's room for those players who are kind of been on the outside to break in, Matthew Corcoran being one of them as well. Because this is where you find your moment, is when things are kind of not going great for the team, right? So I think that's kind of the only way to go about fixing it within. And then the other thing is just not. It's more psychological than anything, but being able to not let this define you and define who you are, whether it's the players or the coaches or anybody else involved with the organization. I think being able to kind of just put this behind you and move on as quickly as possible, as the most important stretch of the season is still ahead of
All
them.
right. So this one comes from Ronan XEX, not to be confused with presumably his sister Charlie. You're allowed to bring back one Nashville player of the past to elevate the roster. Who and why?
Well, first, Steven felt the need to text us his answer to this one. So he said John Ricketts 100%. So that's Steven's answer. I'll let him answer for it next episode, maybe. But yeah, John Ricketts would be
It's not a
hilarious on this.
bad
I would love
shout.
that. Not
It's
hilarious.
not as a
That's not a good
DP, but
one.
it's not a bad shout.
Yeah, no, I like John Ricketts, man. Good player, tall enough to replace Sam Surridge, able to fight his way through. My player would be specifically to a specific player to a specific season. So not this player in any other season, but I would bring back 2021 Randall Leal because I think if you put Randall Leal on the right, his 2021 form when he was scoring some goals, and you put him on the right with Mukhtar and Surridge, I do think that's a really, really good deadly duo, not duo, trio. And I think you keep Alex Mudl on the left, and he does more of the defensive work, freeing Leal to stay higher up. I think that's just gonna be like, I think that would be like that third scorer that
So
everybody's
I'm going
looking
to do the
for.
opposite of what you did and say this player, but not of the year that he was with Nashville SC, or should I say the hour he was with Nashville SC? Brendan Vasquez would be a great second striker to have for Nashville SC.
That's interesting.
But
Interesting.
other than
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
I do think. I mean, I feel like I'm really harboring on the fullbacks who have had a great season, and so I don't mean it to come off that way. But I mean, how many problems would Alistair Johnston have solved when up against it a few times this year? So I do think. I mean, Thomas Porter, who answered a question or asked a question earlier, did ask how much TAM it would cost to 3D print Dax McCarty or Annabelle Godoy. That might be a decent shout. I think midfield's kind of settled, but it's a fun shout.
Yeah, I mean, a prime Dax McCarty is just. I mean, we're biased, but yeah, I would say he would be a really good shout. Clay, this comes from AJ. Who is a non-DP name to become an X factor going down the stretch?
It's obviously Tyler Boyd. Like he's the guy. Like if they can get anything useful out of Tyler Boyd, and I don't mean useful in like a negative way. I mean like a proactive way. Like if they can get anything of use of him down the stretch here, that is big time because he's a different level than some of the other players that have played a lot on this national roster. So if they can get something out of Tyler Boyd down the stretch here, that significantly raises the ceiling for Nashville.
Just to offer a little bit of a variation, I do agree with Tyler Boyd. I think that's a really good shout. But my number one answer would actually be Gaston Brugman. I think if Gaston Brugman started showing some of his, first of all, he started showing some of his signs the last 3 games or so of why he is, why he's regarded as one of the best midfielders. I think his best performance for the Galaxy came in the MLS Cup final. So he clearly has a knack for these sort of big games, playoffs, Open Cup, all that. If he can show that quality where he won MLS Cup MVP, he was the MVP of the match for the MLS Cup. If he can show that quality going down the stretch, he would be that X factor. Now, obviously, I don't know how much of that's going to show on the stat sheet or even the scoring sheet. He's known for some assists, but I think he would be somebody that might be, a bit of a surprise if you ask people maybe 2 weeks ago or a month ago of whether or not where he stands with the team. I think he has a really good chance of doing that.
I will say that I've said this now a bunch of times on this show, and eventually it'll be true. I think there will be a match. I think there will be a match at some point this season that Gaston Brugman wins for Nashville SC with the way he plays. I think he's going to have that type of impact in a match this season, and we've seen spots of it. But I think that there's going to be a match that will be the Brugman game, if you will. This is a weird one, and
Before you get to
no,
that, I'll
I
give you
was
a sec.
continuing the
I just want to
conversation.
say. Oh,
This is
okay,
a
okay.
weird one.
No, go ahead then.
And
Okay.
it'll draw some eye rolls from people that are listening to this. But I stand by it. I think there's going to be a game that Nashville SC sees out, in a tough game that they see out because of Teal Bunbury. Like, yeah.
He's
Well, I
due,
don't even
right?
mean like just scoring. I mean like he goes up there, wins some fouls, holds onto the ball, gets it in the corner. He does a lot of dirty work. And when you get into cup games, when you get into playoffs and things like that, you need guys who can do that. And I don't know if that's necessarily like qualifies as an X factor, but like Nashville doesn't have a lot of guys who have a strong history of doing that. I mean, how many times has it been a 1-goal game and Nashville immediately looks for the goal? Like, which, as a fan you want, because you're like, hey, I get to, celebrate another goal. But I think like maybe not always the most optimal thing to do. And, I think that Bunbury's going to have to do that in a couple of games. And I think that it will not be necessarily regarded as great at the time, but I think it'll be important to see how to result. That's a weird one. I know it's a weird one.
And yeah. I mean, I think it would be a really good sort of bow on his Nashville career if he doesn't come back next season. I'll let Clay read that last question we have, but before that, I will say that the invitation has been and always will be open for one of the wingers to be that X factor. I mean, they've all had chances. They've all
if they're going to
had
be an
their
X factor,
chances,
we need
and
them
they
to be an
haven't
X
done it.
factor in the Open Cup final or the MLS Cup final, because then there won't be a game afterwards for them to be terrible. That's harsh.
Yeah, I mean the door for BJ Callahan's door has been always open for these wingers and will be for the remainder of the season. And he's begging one of them to go out there and just score a couple goals.
Yeah, it's I don't know. At this point, a winger having 2 good games in a row will be as celebrated by me as Hani finally scoring a free kick. That clock's been ticking, all right? So we got one last question, but I say last question as if it's one question when it is in fact several. This one comes from Elm. He said, I'm not fully ready for the final questions below, but as I'm still in this season and what can come from it. So with that being said, looking ahead, what results might we realistically hope for this season? And with the spell of promise we showed, what do you think it would take to call this season a success? I think we've answered that one already. I think it's already a successful season. Yeah. And then moving on from that, what areas of the roster do you think most need new talent and competition? I mean, I told you, for me, fullback, striker, goalkeeper. Is there anything else you're looking out for there, Valair?
I would say possibly another winger, or depending on what system Callahan ends up sticking with, a winger to replace if Alex Muyl doesn't stick around. Depending on his option year, if one of the 3 wingers just is moved on from, or just competition, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how Tyler Boyd's going to react. So potentially a winger, but I would say the ones you mentioned are a priority.
And then last, if NSC could make one big signing for next year, what is the one spot where that player can make the most impactful boost to the squad? And, it's funny because I didn't mention this position on the 3 that I just said, but I do think it's the ceiling shifter. Like, I think like depth is important, but I think that this squad is mostly good. But if you're able to find a goal scoring winger to mix in, I think that's where you see the most impactful boost. I think that this Nashville SC squad, if you improve the depth of the pieces, I think they'll still be very good next year. But if you find a winger, and we talk about it all the time on here for the last several years, if you find a winger who can score you, or a right or left sided midfielder that can score you 6 or 7, 8 goals in a year, that changes you from being a really good team that's possibly a contender into an absolutely, totally, objectively contender type team.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And I would say it doesn't have to be a winger. Just going back to an earlier question about formation and whatnot, I would say even somebody like Daniel Gazda ilk, somebody who can play out wide but is kind of central a little bit, who can get goals. I think that would be a game changer for this team. So yeah, I would say we're using the word winger, but another goal
Yeah, I
scoring
mean, we were
threat
kind of talking left
of
or right
any
sided
sort.
midfielder, really, more than anything else. And I
Right.
do think like that also goes back to what Valair said about getting 2021 Randall Leal. Like it's just that little bit can change. It doesn't seem like a lot in the grand scheme of things. Like 6 or 7 goals doesn't seem like a lot over the course of a season, but it is a huge difference in terms of not only attacking but being defended against. If you don't just have to worry about Sam Surge or Honey Mukhtar, and then you have a game like the Atlanta game last time out for Nashville SC, where Hani and Sam couldn't really get going, and the team didn't do anything as a result.
Yep.
Well, speaking of games, we're not going to just take a break for the sake of taking a break. We'll just roll into this last one. Nashville SC is finally back in action this weekend. It is a rivalry game. It is honestly, for me, one of the more fun road trips that you can make as a Nashville SC supporter, to go up to Cincinnati. Pretty big game for both teams. I mean, Nashville's looking to get back on the winning side of things, but I mean, Cincinnati, like, they need to win some games if they're going to stay in the Shield race, because it's pretty tight up there. And you got a home team, you got a home game. It doesn't matter who it's against. You got a home game. You need to win it if you're trying to win the Supporter Shield again. So, just want to say, recommend, if you have the chance to go to Cincinnati, it's a great stadium. It's a great environment. You can have Skyline Chili at the stadium. That's unbelievable. I'm so here for it. But I think you should go if you can do it. If not, just make sure it's on your list for MLS stadiums to go to, because it's a great match.
I agree. Yeah, I've been there 4 or 5 times probably for matches dating back to USL, where you and I were there for the first ever match between those two in Cincinnati, I believe. So I think, if you can make it, you can make it in one day. I wouldn't recommend that, but you can. We've done that
shout
actually. Clay
out to
and I
me
have.
and Tim Sullivan going to the Creation Museum before going to the 6-3.
Yeah, that's on you. I didn't do that.
What a day!
I didn't do
What
that
a
part.
day! Before watching the 6-3 win.
But the area by the stadium,
Oh yeah,
the area of by the stadium is pretty walkable and nice, and I think it's a good trip. But on the pitch, look, this is 2 good teams, very good teams going at it. Cincinnati has a little bit of a different philosophy. They win every game 1-0, or they may lose it 1-0. They have Evander, who is very good at soccer. This is not the analysis you pay for, but this is the analysis you're getting right now, because Evander has bailed them out time and time again. He is the sort of one of the MVP runners at the moment. So all in all, I think I'm going to go ahead and go into my prediction. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw.
classic Nashville Cincy.
And I know, classic Nashville Cincy scoreline. And I think the goals for Nashville SC will come from Sam Surridge and Alex Muyl. Let's do it. That's my 2 for
and where can people follow you
for that game? At Valair Shabilla on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, wherever you are. But also go to 615soccer.com. You'll find a lot of good stuff there.
So you can follow me at Clay La Soul, and that's on Instagram and Twitter. I will be talking a lot about Everton, as you may know, and a lot about volleyball. It's that time of year. But as for what I think this is a really interesting time for Cincinnati, because I think Cincinnati is kind of in a moment. They're a little bit further up the table than us, not much, but a little bit further up the table than us. But they're in this similar sort of moment that Nashville is in. So Cincinnati did beat Portland a few weeks ago, but they've lost, I think, 3 of their last 4, and so they're 5 points off the top of the table for the Shield. If they don't win against Nashville, I think they're out of the Shield race completely. So I think that I think Nashville's due for a result up there. I think they're going to go. So I'm going to go 6-3. Sorry.
Speaking of games I was there
6-3,
for,
one of the best environments on a road game that we've ever had. Which is weird because Nashville was down 3-1 in that game. Steven wasn't there. That's probably why it was good. Now, I think Nashville's going to find a way to win. I think it's going to be really nervy. I'm going to go 2-1 Nashville, and I cannot wait for a potential Twitter freak out from a particular fan base if Nashville does go up there and manage to get a win out of it. So I'm going to be overly optimistic, but I'm going to go 2-1 because why not? This is a Nashville show. I'm going to predict a win. Steven told us that Nashville is going to win 14-0, and that's what he told us. So I think those are our predictions for the show. Thank you for listening once again to Pharmaceutical Soccer. We value you guys, and I got to tell you this, it is wild. I think Valair can attest to this, the amount of growth that in terms of people just talking to us at games that we've had over the last year has been incredible. It's also helped, people reach out to us and want to hop on the show, like with Dax McCarty last week. So, I mean, that's a testament not to just the show doing well, but it's a testament to you guys tuning in every week to listen to us. And we do not take it for granted. And we absolutely love when you guys come up and talk to us at games and let us know where Steven was wrong and where both Valair and I were correct. And so we hope that you continue to do that. And we hope to see you the next home game at Geodis Park. So thanks y'all for listening. We'll see you guys next week.